now is the time when we enter into our meditation here together today. So I invite you to just gently close your eyes or just find a spot on the floor to gaze. Just allowing your breath to flow naturally and just feeling your body begin to relax more and more with each breath. Just allowing yourself to be present in this moment. Acknowledging thoughts and just allowing them to come and gently go. Just continuing to follow the breath. And now I invite you to focus on the word love. On the feeling of love. On those places in which you find love. And on those people and things and places in which you feel true love. Envisioning love for yourself. And just silently affirming to yourself, I am love. Next, we move to joy. Visualize the word joy. How does joy feel in your life? Holding and visualizing those things that make you feel that immense joy. Silently affirming, I am joy. And peace. Visualize the word peace. Visualize the feeling of peace. Maybe it's a place in your life and where you find peace, or a person in your life that brings you this feeling of peace. How does it feel? What does it look like when you feel that immense peace? And as we prepare to enter into our moment of silence, I invite you to hold these things, love, joy, and peace, and just allow yourself to feel. Allow yourself to feel these things and to project them out to those around you as we enter into our moment of silence. you begin to bring your awareness back to this room, back to this moment. I invite you to hold these things and to carry these things with you. Knowing that love, joy, and peace, these are who you are. These are a part of that essence of the God within. That essence of the God within that is as much a part of you as you are of it. That enmeshment of one. Together we silently affirm, I am love. I am joy. And I am peace. And we allow it to be. Namaste. And I invite you to please continue to affirm for their wonderful music. See, I think Pete was wanting to save his voice because Wednesday is his birthday. So Pete's wanting to save his voice to get rowdy. He's planning on having a good party, so happy birthday, Pete. All right, so how's everybody feeling this morning? Everybody looks happy and smiling. One thing I want to ask all you Wisconsinites is, what's up with the weather? Because last week was my type of weather, that coolness. And Mindy and I were like, yes, we're on the cusp, that humidity's breaking. And then this, today, it's humid out there. So anyway, I guess, it's what we get to move into Packers territory. But I won't go there. It's not quite football season yet, so. All right, so we're moving on in our gift of anger, and I was thinking today was going to be the last Sunday, but we're going to have one more, so we'll skip the 2 weeks with Mary Grace and R.A. John, and we'll finish up when I get back. So we'll be finished at the end of August, and we'll be getting ready to go into a fall book study. But what I plan on doing, if anybody has any books you're interested in, let me know. Email me at minister@unityofmadison.org because I'd like to send a survey out to the congregation and let's kind of, see what people are interested in. So if you've got a book that's, kind of ties into spirituality in some way, it's got to be something spiritual, at least along those lines. Be sure to let me know and let's pick one together as a community. So keep that in mind as we get a little bit closer to September. So moving on with the gift of anger. Now I want to start by asking, and you don't have to answer this out loud, but how many of you feel as if you implement enough humor in your life? Well, Josie, of course. Yeah, Josie's always laughing, but in case y'all haven't discovered, y'all been around me long enough, you know I love laughter. I like it. It's highly contagious. I just love laughter. I love humor. I love laughter. Now, Arun talks about Gandhi, spending time with Gandhi, and he talks about a lot of the humor and a lot of laughter that Gandhi enjoyed. And he describes Gandhi, he said Gandhi was a small guy, he was only about 5'5". And by the time Arun, his grandson, was 14, he'd already, outgrown Gandhi. He'd already shot up. And Arun talks about a time when he and his friend were out walking with Gandhi, and they're both towering over him, both these 14-year-old boys, and they're towering over him. And they said that Gandhi put an arm around each one of their shoulders, hoists himself up, and starts swinging like a little kid. Almost like he's going, wee, wee, and he was laughing and having a good time. And, he says just real delightful when he did it. And Arun talks about what he describes as Gandhi's robust sense of humor that made him a down-to-earth man. And he talks about how he used his natural wit to convince people that he wasn't very different from them. So sometimes when we have a little bit of humor in our lives, we're not taking life quite so seriously, We're just kind of having some fun with it and seeing where it takes us and how it goes. But I've often admired Gandhi and his work, those great works that he accomplished during his lifetime. The changes that resulted from his work, those changes that we still remember and talk about today. Gandhi understood, however, that the way to make these changes was through hard work and determination. Yes, humor, but also hard work and determination. But he knew that change didn't just stop with him. Gandhi didn't think, hey, I'm the only one that's going to make this change, and boom, that's it when I go. He didn't look at himself in the mirror each morning and pride himself as being the only person that could bring about the type of change that he brought about. He knew that we could all take part in that and that we could all affect change very similar to what he did during his lifetime. Now, Gandhi also, he was a big believer in the power of transformation and how even the smallest changes, and I know I've mentioned this before, but how even the smallest changes, those that we likely maybe even think of as really having no consequence, can result in the most powerful changes. He also believed in the great power of love and how through that great power of love, we can transform the world, making it a better place for ourselves and for future generations. Now, Gandhi lived by what he called the 5 pillars of nonviolence, and how he felt when we followed these 5 pillars of nonviolence, that important foundations held within each one of these could be life-changing. Now, the first 2 of these pillars are respect and understanding. Gandhi taught that respect and understanding of other people, whatever their religion or country, is the only way the world can move forward. He didn't say, just this group over here, this group over here. He's included everyone can help make that change to move forward. He felt that putting up barriers, rather physical barriers or emotional barriers, wasn't helpful. And how in the end it would ultimately backfire. When we put up these physical or these emotional barriers between each other, it's going to ultimately backfire. And he mentioned how this backfire would ultimately lead to rebellion and possibly even violence. And we've talked about violence before while studying this book, how it's not always just a physical violence. But when we take down those barriers and those things that we perceive to be different from each other, we also grow our ability to begin to accept others' views, others' viewpoints. And with this acceptance, we grow both stronger and we grow wiser. Now I want to ask a question here, and again, you don't have to answer it, in front of everybody. But who doesn't desire more happiness in here? Is there anybody in here that doesn't desire more happiness, either for yourself or for other people? I'm thinking probably the answer is no. But Arun tells us that the last 2 pillars, appreciation and compassion, bring about personal happiness and fulfillment. And this personal happiness and fulfillment lead to greater harmony with everyone. And it starts with appreciation. And it's really a lot like gratitude, right? It's when we stop and we appreciate those things in this life that we're grateful for. Arun tells us that appreciation can make a profound difference in our lives. That's why we hear about it so much. Keep a gratitude journal. Name 3 things that we're happy for, that we appreciate, and we're grateful for every day. There's a reason for it. It's because it really begins to make a profound difference in our lives. And what happens when we begin those changes in our own lives inside? Other people pick up on that, right? And then they also start appreciating those things. And it becomes part of this mass collective consciousness, and it grows. Arun also tells us that the happiest people aren't those with the highest number in their checking accounts. He mentions the happiest people are those who appreciate the beauty and the goodness around them. So let's think about this for a second. Lately, I've been personally conducting my own form of research and education on the subject of happiness. And I've been reading much about how how happiness really does impact our lives. How it drives productivity, both in the workplace and our personal lives, and how it helps us to achieve. And I'm not talking about just achieve at work, but all types of different things in our lives, our dreams, our goals. Far too often we think about those things we want to achieve in our lives, and we're like, I have to achieve that before I can be happy. When I have that job over there, I'll be happy. When I graduate, I'll be happy. When I have grandchildren, I'll be happy. When I finish this project, I'll be happy. And when we do that, we all base it on some future event. Instead of thinking about first, what if our happiness instead helps bring some of those events to us? But it's completely bypassing the appreciation of beauty and goodness that we don't see the happiness that's happening in our lives right now. It's when we take time to appreciate the beauty and goodness that we start seeing that happiness. Sometimes we may feel as if we can't see it, depending on whatever it is that's going on in our lives, that it's not happening. But nothing could be further from the truth because it happens within. It's not something we have to see out there, it happens within. It doesn't mean that it's not there just because we don't physically see it. It doesn't mean people aren't still out there showing random acts of kindness with each other or helping each other. It doesn't mean that we can't look out our windows and still see beautiful scenery, right? Mindy and I look out our window all the time in our backyard and we see, rabbits hopping around. We see nature. We see little frogs. Out here you see butterflies. There's beauty happening all around us. So I recently read a story of a man who spoke in front of a group of children in what he termed a third world country. And he approached the classroom much as he would an American classroom. In a joking manner, he walks in and he asks the kids, he's like, "Who in here likes homework?" But he was quite shocked to see every student in the class raise their hand. Their hands all shot up. And he's like, what is going on? You say that in an American classroom, the kids are going to be like, no thanks. All hands are going to stay down. But he later found that it's because even being able to sit in a classroom seat was a privilege to those kids. He met, like I said, he pictured kids going, ooh, homework. But he later learned that it was a privilege for those kids in that type of environment to be sitting in a classroom to begin with. Arun talks about ways in which we can allow ourselves to practice gratitude, especially when we're just not feeling it. There's days we're going to get up and be like, gratitude? You want me to practice gratitude? There's COVID out there. Why would I practice gratitude? There are many ways we can practice gratitude. One of the reasons Arun mentions is to take a look at our lives from another person's point of view. And let's think about those children in that classroom in that third world country. How might they feel if they were to appear into an American classroom and they see the kids all getting new textbooks? They see the new shoes on their feet, the desks even that they have to sit in, the chalk. I don't know if teachers still use chalk in classrooms. The chalk are the markers that the teachers are using in order to teach the lessons. The school supplies. What about people that live in places where food is scarce? How might would they feel if they were to appear into your window at dinner time? There's likely quite a bit for you to be grateful for, those things that we don't even honestly think about, some of those things that we just take for granted on a daily basis. And Arun talks about the disservice we do to ourselves when we don't take time to also practice appreciation and compassion. He even goes so far as to refer to it as violence to ourselves when we don't practice these things. He says we do violence to ourselves when we focus on what we are missing or lacking rather than appreciating the gifts we have been given. And it applies to everybody. We don't even have to be on a spiritual path or practicing a spiritual practice of any form or a religion to appreciate a beautiful sunrise, do we? That's something anybody can go out and do. Appreciate a beautiful sunrise. Or the way that it feels as it's coming up. Just that time of morning. We can sit anywhere. We can sit in awe whether we see God in it or we just simply enjoy being able to witness the beautiful colors light up the sky or the beautiful air at that time of morning. And I think sometimes, and even Arun mentions this, we're too busy comparing ourselves to others. That can happen sometimes too, right? And can kind of get in the way of some compassion or, for ourselves. We think we somehow lack because we don't have what, such and such over there has. I'm like, hey, I lack. I don't drive the same car he's got. There must be something lacking in my life. But it doesn't matter what that person over there has. You know why? We aren't that person. I'm Evan, you're Josie, you're Jill, you're Chris. We aren't the same person, and that's okay. We can still appreciate what each one of us has. And when we take time to think about what it is that we do have, we can also begin to see ways in which we can also help others. Mindy and I had friends in Oregon who actually moved to Nicaragua to help install water filtration systems. Now, I'm not saying that we must do this. I'm not saying we all got to get on a bus tomorrow and go down to Nicaragua, but I'm using this as an example because it really helps to begin to put things into perspective and allow us to begin to think of the creative ways in which we can help other people. Maybe it's just smiling at somebody. Maybe that's what that person needs at that time, just saying hi. When we do this, Arun tells us, when you allow yourself to respond to others with compassion, you recognize their need for self-respect and you treat everyone equally. Now, another lesson Arun talks about is the fact that we will be tested. Instances, if I can talk, are also found in the Bible. James 1:2-4 talks about this. Count it all joy, my brothers and sisters, when you meet trials of various kinds. For you know that the testing of your faith produces steadfastness. And let steadfastness have its full effect, that you may be perfect and complete, lacking in nothing. So Arun talks about the time he spent with his grandfather and how that time eventually started coming to an end and it was time for him to go home. His family began to feel that it was time to go back to South Africa due to a lot of upheaval that was happening at the time in India. And Arun was a teenager at this point. And he began to notice how much differently he was starting to think and how much differently he viewed the world than he did when he first, moved to the ashram with Gandhi. He felt he was calmer. He viewed the world through a different lens. And this was all thanks to the lessons and the time spent with his grandfather. Then before long, as we know in history, the unthinkable happened. He and his family got word that Gandhi had been assassinated. And Arun told his family, if I had been at Birla House where it was that Gandhi was assassinated, I would have throttled the person who shot Bapuji. I would have killed him. And Arun says his dad looks at him and he says, have you already forgotten the lessons that your grandfather taught you? Did he not say we must use anger intelligently? What would the use of the anger you feel, if I can say that, what would be the use of the anger you feel right now? And this is what Arun means by when he mentions that we will be tested. It's going to happen to all of us. How many of you, and again, you don't have to raise your hand, this is just for you, but how many of you have attended a church service, you've heard a spiritual talk, you've read a book, and you've had this moment where you learned something new. And you're like, you know what? Hey, that sounds really great. This is what I have been needing to hear to progress me along the path of my spiritual growth. I'm going to add this to my spiritual toolkit because this is something I can practice. And you do, and you find that it's really working. You're like, wow, that was excellent advice. It's really working. You feel better. You're seeing life through a happier or more peaceful perspective. I mean, it is really working. But suddenly something happens. And it's almost as if you never even learned that new thing to begin with. And you feel like you're back at square one again. This is what he means. Things happen along the way to where you can sometimes think, why do I even attend church? Why do I even, read spiritual books or listen to these spiritual teachers? Why do I do this when it doesn't seem to work for the long term? Well, we can't actually practice unless we have opportunities to practice, right? We've got to have those opportunities. Say you read a book about baseball. You're like, you know what? I want to learn how to play baseball. You've never been on a baseball field, but you go to the library and you check out a book on baseball. Then suddenly, you're playing the position of left field. You're like, I really want to play left field. So you're imagining this in your mind. And you're reading about how to catch a fly ball. You're like, I'm going to be ready. When I'm in left field, that ball's going to pop out and I'm going to be ready to catch it. It's flying at high velocity. I'm going to get it anyway. Then you really go out into left field and start to play, and you've never played before. Do you think you're really going to be able to catch that ball if you haven't practiced on how to actually do it? Are you really going to be well prepared to catch it unless you've actually been in that situation to practice catching the ball? You're going to have to be tested. The only way to truly learn, the only way to have what it is you've learned to actually allow it to sink in is to put it into practice. Arun learned this when he began to deal with the hostile feelings toward the man who killed his grandfather. He said, I know how difficult it is to follow this grand law of love. But are not all great and good things difficult to do? Love of the hater is the most difficult of all. But even this most difficult thing becomes easy to accomplish if we want to do it. So that is why, as Arun stated in his own words, and so in the year since my grandfather died, I have dedicated myself to spreading his messages of forgiveness and hope and nonviolence. That was the way he used his anger to drive positive change after the death of Gandhi. So things are going to continue to happen. Things are going to continue to happen out there. Things have happened. We've had school shootings. We've had cars driving into people at hate rallies. And we're going to have people, sometimes even those who are supposed to be leaders, to essentially condone those acts. But it doesn't mean that we can't continue, we've heard it before, that we can't continue to take the high road. That we can't continue to do what we know is right, because deep within, we know what it is that's truly right, because it's a part of our essence. It's a part of that essence that we are of the God within. Arun has since often been asked to speak in rooms full of people where people have experienced hurt or anger. And he said, we transform the world only when we face challenges with love and kindness rather than hatred and meanness. And he mentioned the famous words of Gandhi, words that we've heard before. We must be the change we seek. Arun also tells us in his own words, the power of my grandfather's lessons can inspire all of us in good times and bad. And his light of hope will continue to shine. If we want this world to change, we have to change ourselves. If we want peace in the world, we have to find peace in ourselves. Namaste. I'm going to be sad when we're finished with that book. I've really enjoyed it. And I hope you all have enjoyed it as much as I have. So now is the time in our service where we're going to get ready to install our new spiritual care team. Now, normally, I'm sure most of you know this has already been done earlier in the year. And we have had an eager group of people that have been waiting to finally officially be installed. And it has been the most patient group of people on our new spiritual care team. They have endured several online trainings, several online meetings. We were really kind of hoping that we would be able to all come back in person and do this in person, but it doesn't look like we're going to be able to quite at this time, so we're going to do it virtually today. But you may notice that the term or the name of the team has changed. It's Spiritual Care Team, and the reason that is because we've also got a new position. We've got our prayer chaplains, and we also have two people that have stepped up to be what is called keepers of the flame. Now, what they will be responsible for, they will be assisting the prayer chaplains on Sundays to hold the sacred space for all of us here in the church service. But they will also be assisting and holding sacred space for things such as board meetings, for our annual meetings, and other different events that we have happen through the church. So you'll hear a little bit more about that later. But we're so proud to have this new team that has been patient and has worked very diligently, so we would like to introduce them today. We have two in our, I think we just have two right now. We have two that are in our sanctuary right now. We've got R.A. John Whitewolf, who just walked in. And we've got Chris Ekman sitting in the back, so good to see you two here. And I'm now going to invite our new spiritual care team coordinator, Josie Collins.
So thank you all. It's an honor to be the coordinator of our team, and we are growing, and it is evolving. It's like it's a little different when you're having to do everything on Zoom, and we have a new manual we're following. But we have a wonderful team, and we're so grateful. And also, we will be in the process of providing Zoom after church. We're going to meet again in September. Well, we meet once a month anyway, but we're going to meet in September, and then we'll be having a Zoom that you can call in, like our online community can call in and make a request for a prayer. So that will be about an hour, and then, if several people call in, you'll be put into the waiting room, and you'll have a prayer chaplain pray with you. So we're really excited to implement that. And we'll continue to have some prayer chaplains here if they feel comfortable, and then we have on-call for this month. So I wanted to also to acknowledge Linda Martella Whitsett. She's the woman that wrote 2 of our books that we've studied here at church, the How to Pray Without Talking to God and Divine Audacity. And she came and did a wonderful training with us here in Madison. We were so honored to have her. And then she also did a really wonderful prayer program retreat type of thing that we used as part of our training too. And she's a wonderful teacher, so we're getting good training, and we love to pray. All right. So I'd like to introduce our team. Oh, one last thing. If we have people that have signed up already, but if you haven't signed up, please call or email the office this week and let us know if you want to be part of the prayers, that you'll have a monthly prayer call from a prayer chaplain, and we'll get that out to you, and the prayers should start this month. So I'd like to introduce our team. Josie Collins, the coordinator. Diane Gould. Mary Lynn Mail. Angela Hall is a keeper of the flame. Kari Hen, she's our longtime prayer chaplain. We honor her for that. Mindy Wilkins is also the keeper of the flame. Pat O'Laughlin, welcome him back to our team. Ari John Whitewolf is on our team also. Chris Ekman, we honor her. And Jeannie Verche. So thank you, everyone. Please, we're here to help you pray. We want to bring more prayer to our community, even though it's in a different form, but we are willing and able. And if you ever have a prayer request, please contact the office, and then they can contact me, and I'll send it out to the prayer team. We pray together as a team, and then we send it on to Silent Unity for 30 additional days of prayer. So you'll be prayed up. Thank you.
I did also want to let you know, if you have already been receiving calls from a prayer chaplain, your name will stay on the list. We're not going to drop anyone unless you make the decision that you no longer want a call. So your name, if you've been receiving prayer chaplain calls, you will continue. You may have a new prayer chaplain, but you will continue to receive calls. So don't panic if you haven't signed up. It's just, if you're not already receiving calls, let us know and we'll make sure. And there's no time limit on that. You can decide, in 3 months, and we'll get you assigned to a prayer chaplain. So thank you to all of the new members of our spiritual care team. We love you all. We bless you all, and we appreciate you for stepping up to do this for us. So thank you, and thank you to those that are with us online right now. Okay. And now we go back to remembering our children and our youth ed that is taking place right now. So please join me in honoring and blessing our children and youth ed as they meet. So Children and Youth Ed Department, we love you, we bless you, we appreciate you, and we behold the Christ you are. All right, and as we prepare our tithes and offerings, a reminder, I think most of you are probably aware of them by now, but we are not passing the baskets around, so please place your gifts in the basket on the door, and put it on the basket. I can't even talk today. See, vacation is already in my mind. I'm physically here, but mentally I think I might be somewhere else. But anyway, the basket is over on the table, so please drop it into the basket on your way out. Again, we haven't covered all of the events that we have taking place. We haven't covered all those in the morning announcements. So remember to check our website, unityofmadison.org, and take a look at our calendar. You'll see all of our Zoom links and things like that on there. Please, if any of those look good to you, jump in. You don't even have to ask our permission. Just jump in and join us. We always end up having some good conversation. And the Thursday lunch, sometimes we don't know where that's going to go. There's a fly keeps buzzing around. But sometimes we don't know where the Thursday lunch is going to go, but it turns out to be some pretty good conversation. So feel free to join us for any of those events. So now I invite you to take your tithes and offerings and place them over your heart as we say our offertory blessing. Divine love, through me, blesses and multiplies all that I am, all that I have, all that I give, and all that I receive. Thank you, God. And now our offertory song, I Am So Blessed.